What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. It's a great day. It's a good night, unless you're a Buffalo Bill. Tough day to be a Buffalo Bill. A lot of cuts, a lot of restructuring. I showed my cuts list. I think I had a few guys on there. Restructure Rasul Douglas. I think I talked about that. So we'll get into that a little bit. Fantasy Dog Pound Pat, what's up? Thanks for stopping in. Hit that like button. Appreciate it. We're going to get into some rookie post-combine kind of rankings. I'm going to pull up my rankings again, and we might do some ranking on the fly here and adjust a little bit. Obviously, there was some prospects had some killer combines, some had some huge disappointments, and we're going to have to adjust, move up and down. So let's get into it. We're not gonna chit chat too much. Let's take a look at the rankings that I got. So showed you guys this last episode last week. Not a lot's changed for me quarterback wise. Again, I still have to watch tape on these guys to kind of hammer this down, nail it in, but I'm pretty positive it's going to stay the way you see it here. Caleb, Jaden Daniels, I'm not moving down. For me, he's definitely QB2. I'm not putting Drake May ahead of him. I don't care what anybody says, unless I watch the tape and it's just, I don't know, completely what I don't expect for, compared to what games I've seen him. I've seen obviously some LSU games, and that was enough for me to put him at 2, plus the stat profile. I'm happy to have him there. So this probably won't change too much. JJ McCarthy might move above Bo Nix here, even though I like Bo Nix, Jesus, probably more than most. I'm going to have a sip. I got a beverage here for the boys, so maybe that'll get my head straight here. So I like Bo Nix more than most, but I could see JJ McCarthy moving up, and I could absolutely see him getting drafted before Bo Nix. But I think we'll see. I think we'll see him get drafted higher than people think, maybe back into the first round, early second round sort of thing. But I think we'll see Bo Nix play some snaps in the NFL this year. This is where I want to go for actually setting up some rankings here and basically what happened at the combine. So Braylon Allen, I have listed, not that I'm going to rank him number one, but he's in the, in the competition, in the conversation for the RB1. I wanted to see him run at the combine. I'm happy that he was there competing, doing some other things. But I really want to know what his 40 is going to be. Obviously, that's a huge, it's a huge differentiator between him and essentially Isaac Arendo, who, if you tuned in last week, I tried to tell you about Isaac Arendo. And here we are. I told you he could lead the RBs or even just break the combine with his 40 time, and he did exactly that. So I tried to tell you about Isaac Arendo. Shitty thing about him, and with Underdog, is he's not in the player pool, which is a real kick in the nuts, because I would have been at least probably 10 to 20%, 15 to 20% on Isaac Arendo in the big board. But it is what it is. It's the same for everybody. Nobody can draft him, but he's going to be in my top 10. I'll tell you that much. Audric Estime, he's fallen down. That 40 time was a killer. He could still be a good Thunder piece, as I have written here. I was really just worried about the 40. A little bit of Mark Ingram I saw. He wins one-on-one because he's such a big back, but that 40 time is just, he's going to be a rumbler, volume guy, I guess, but he's not going to get that volume. Not a big fan of Bucky Irving. So who do I have as my RB1? I kind of have to nail this down a little bit still, but realistically, Jalen Wright's in the excuse me, in the conversation. Marshawn Lloyd's in the conversation. I guess Jonathan Brooks is in the conversation. Trey Benson for sure. Braylon Allen's still in there. I think this running back class, there is no Bijan Robinson, obviously. There is no Jahmyr Gibbs. There is no Breece Hall. There's no Kenneth Walker. There's no top tier talent, in my opinion, and that includes Jonathan Brooks. And that's just my opinion on it. I'm not gonna change it, and no one's gonna get drafted first round. There is no first round running back talent in this draft class, but I think that it's super, super deep. I really, really think that there's going to be a lot of capable running backs that put up fantasy stats and play right away for NFL teams. There's a lot of running back needy teams right now. Obviously, Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler. There's a lot of free agents out there as well, but a lot of these guys aren't going to be looked at as bell cows anymore. Saquon probably, Jacobs, yeah, I think for sure he's only like 25, but Derrick Henry's going to need a compliment. Austin Eckler is going to need a compliment, and a guy like Trey Benson can come in and be, your bell cow. He can do whatever you need. He can be your RB1. Brandon Allen can be your RB1. Marshawn Lloyd, RB1. Jalen Wright, I think he can start for a team. Isaac Guerrero, Ray Davis. If any of these guys go to the LA Chargers, it's going to be absolute wheels up. Whoever goes to the LA Chargers, whoever the running back is in LA is going to be, a super, super hot commodity. So we'll see how it kind of levels out. I don't know if there's anything to talk about with my notes here, but I tried to tell you about Isaac Guerrero. I love him. Breakaway speed. He can return kicks as well, which is a huge advantage, especially for rookie running backs. More fringe than him. If you look at Khalil Herbert a few years back when he was drafted 5th round guy, I believe, he was basically the RB3 on the team, but he was the primary kick returner as well. So that forced him to basically, he was going to make the squad. Isaac Guerrero with the combine he just did, of course he's going to make a team. That's not a question whatsoever. A guy like Blake Watson is someone that I'll look at in the same vein as a guy like Khalil Herbert, who's going to get drafted later in the draft, day 3 guy for sure, 6th, 7th round, maybe undrafted free agent. But I see him winning a kick returner job, forcing himself onto a roster, and then we'll see what happens if there's an injury, much like, Khalil Herbert is basically the poster boy for that conversation. So that's what I see someone like Blake Watson being. I would have said that about Guerrero to an extent, but he's top 5, to be honest, with what he just did at the combine. And if you watch his tape, it is electric. So go watch his tape if you need to. Obviously, he ran what he ran, and at the size, 6'1", 220, a 4.3 speed, you got to be shitting me. And super fresh legs. I have it written in here. Super fresh legs. He basically didn't get, starter carries until his senior year at Louisville. Played behind Braylon Allen, at Wisconsin, transfers over. And even then, he's sharing the backfield with Jawar Jordan. So he's got tons of tread on the tires. One thing I liked about Jalen Wright here, I was watching his tape. I don't know if you guys have seen The Longest Yard, the movie with Adam Sandler, but watching him reminded me of Meggett from The Longest Yard. Like his cuts and stuff, man, he's an exciting back, Jalen Wright. So he could be, RB1 in this draft class as well. So that's a little bit on the running backs and kind of what happened at the combine. Again, Audric Estime definitely stocked down. Braylon Allen, I think, stays the same for now until we see that 40 time at his pro day. I'm definitely going to be all over that day. And I'm going to find out what his 40 time is. My exposure is kind of hinging on it being, he's got to be at least a 4.5 guy. That's kind of where it has to be. If he's 4.6 flat, okay. If he's high 4.6s, 4.7 like Audric Estime, which I highly doubt, but if he is, that's really going to hurt his draft stock. Marshawn Lloyd, draft stock up. Jalen Wright, draft stock up. And let's move on to the wide receivers. Ray Davis, sort of flat. Nick NF42 on Twitter. He's a little. I don't know if he's happy about the combine for Ray Davis and his ridiculous 60%. I'm a little high on him personally, and I'll be slowing down on my drafting there. Like I said last week with the wide receivers, I'm not changing this. I really just think that Rome Odunze could be him. He could be just that guy. I really, really, really like Rome Odunze. When everything was kind of wrapped up, he was still on the field at the combine, running a 3-cone, trying to hit a 6.6. Like he was just trying to hit a number. The dude is, 100% cemented as a top 3 wide receiver in this class. He ran the 40 was perfectly fine, 4.4. That's fantastic. And he's still out there running the 3-cone, trying to compete, trying to hit a certain number that he did not have to do whatsoever. So that was just solidified everything I already thought about Rome Odunze. I think he's got Jamar Chase written all over him. I think the Titans could be in play for Rome Odunze if he's still there. Again, with Brian Callahan going to the Titans, Jamar Chase, Rome Odunze. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. But I'm drafting the shit out of Rome Odunze. I think he's just that guy. I have him above Malik Neighbors. Yes, I do. But again, like I said last week, these three are relatively interchangeable. Personally, I think Marvin Harrison is still the top dog. And then you can, Odunze and Neighbors, you're not, I couldn't fault you for ranking them any which way, but that's how I have it. And I'm not changing it. Brian Thomas, fantastic. People are arguing that, his 40 time at the combine was more impressive than Xavier Worthy's. I'm not about to sit here and say that. Like, that's exactly what I expected out of Brian Thomas. I'm huge on him. Kind of see some Justin Jefferson. That's how high I am on him. This made you look kind of style. I don't even know what I mean by that, if I'm being honest. Just that's the vibe I got from him watching the tape. It was kind of just a little show. I don't know. I really like Brian Thomas a ton. This will not change. Adonai Mitchell. I think with a better quarterback, Adonai Mitchell would have had a much better stat line. I think Quinn Ewers is not very good. So this kind of hurt all of the wide receivers, include Xavier Worthy, which we'll get to in 2 seconds, and Jatavian Sanders, the tight end. I think all three of these guys could have had better seasons with a better quarterback. I just don't really think Quinn Ewers is it whatsoever. So we'll see what happens with Arch Manning there next year. I think he probably should have transferred out Quinn Ewers, go somewhere else, and Arch Manning is going to come in and play in Texas. We'll see what happens, and we'll see what Sarkisian wants to do. But I was listening to Moving the Chains, on Sirius with Miller, and Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller, and they had Sarkisian on this afternoon talking about, Xavier Worthy and a few other things, obviously just interviewing him, but they were talking about Xavier Worthy, obviously just broke the record. Everybody knows it. I'm not breaking news there, but little known fact about Xavier Worthy, in the conversation is Sarkisian actually had John Ross in Washington. He recruited him, brought him in, and had him on the team as a freshman. Little known fact. And basically what he was saying is Xavier Worthy is a much better player than John Ross, which I believe. So I don't know what happened with John Ross. Obviously, I'm a Bengals fan. Like, I don't know why he didn't make it. Obviously, injuries were a thing. Basically, his testing numbers were pretty much, a carbon copy of Tyreek Hill. Height, weight, speed, I'm sure. We don't really exactly know what Tyreek Hill ran, but height and weight were pretty well exactly the same in their draft year between John Ross and Tyreek Hill. Speed, I'm sure, was, again, very, very close. 4.2 guy for Tyreek Hill. And obviously Xavier Worthy beat that, but he's a little bit slimmer, a little bit of a slimmer guy. But I'm going to go ahead right now on stream right this second. He's going right here. I really, really like, obviously, what I saw. And you can see what I have written there. Watching his tape, there was a couple routes where I caught a glimpse of Tyreek Hill. Obviously, that's going to be a comparison, but I wrote this a month ago, 2 months ago. So it was a couple routes, the way he caught the ball, the way he sees the field, the way he takes off. I caught a glimpse of Tyreek Hill a little bit. So we'll see. He's a lot smaller. He's about 20 pounds lighter than Tyreek Hill was in their draft year. And I think Tyreek's put on a little bit of weight. So we're going to need to see Xavier, throw on a couple pounds. But going back to the Sarkisian talk, he basically said he's a better player than John Ross was, but also he was, and more importantly, and this is kind of what got me on it, was he's a more refined route runner. And if you look at what he did as a true freshman, look at his first year at Texas with, what's his name? Let's see if I could pull it up here. Quarterback Casey Thompson for the Texas Longhorns. Do you know who that is? I didn't either, and I don't know. We don't know who that is. So he threw for 2,100 yards that year. You know how many receiving yards Xavier Worthy had? 981 and 12 touchdowns as a true freshman. So what he's weighing in at now, what was it, 165 or something? What do you think he weighed in as what was he weighing as a freshman? $150, soaking wet, with gumboots full of water. Like, I'm not too concerned. I'm really not too concerned about Xavier Worthy's size and him being a bust like John Ross. I think he's going to be able to turn it on and off, much like Tyreek Hill does when he's running routes. He's going to run the proper route. Once the ball's in his hand, become a running back and just, run faster than everyone else on the field. So that's what I see. I'm a big fan of Xavier Worthy. I've got a decent amount of exposure. I think I'm around 20%, which I'm happy with. I'd like to bump it up if I can, but his ADP is going to skyrocket. So it kind of just is what it is. Who else here? Adonai Mitchell had a great combine, tested through the roof. People worried about his stat profile, but he went to Georgia. And then what did I just say about Quinn Ewers that I really don't like at all? So he's never had quality quarterback play realistically. And at Georgia, he's just not getting those looks. It's just not the offense that they run. So I'm not worried about Adonai Mitchell. I love him. I think he's one of my highest exposed wide receivers as it sits, and I'll keep drafting him at the clip I am. Who else do we got? Keon Coleman. Didn't like the tape. Don't particularly like the player, and he kind of fell flat on his face at the combine, in my opinion. So I'm not going to be drafting a ton of Keon Coleman. We'll see where he gets drafted, and that might, if I need to get my exposure to Coleman in the summer, in the Best Ball Mania and those types of tournaments, I'll do that. I'm not too worried about it right now. I don't think you're getting some huge value going after a guy like Keon Coleman. So I'm happy I faded him. I didn't complete fade him, but much like Troy Franklin, again, another guy who's kind of boomer bust. I think he's just a pure boomer bust kind of prospect, Troy Franklin. We'll see how he works out. And again, landing spot's going to be massive for him. So the draft's going to be huge for these two guys on where they go, the quarterback that they're with, and draft capital. Ladd McConkey had a good one. I have been drafting him. I need to probably bump up my exposure a little bit, but I'm not going to take him ahead of ADP. I'll take him at around 110 to 120, right where he's at, sort of thing. But he had a good day, ran a little bit quicker than I think most people thought. So definitely a fine prospect there. Jalen Polk, I'm not too big of a fan of, just kind of meh. Jamari Thrash, he was okay. I think he runs slow, high 4.5s. I think he was actually low 4.5s, so that's all right. It was a decent day. I'm not a huge Tez Walker believer. Again, it'll really depend on where he goes, quarterback that he's with. Xavier Legette, I think, was fantastic, and I'm a huge fan of. I'm actually going to go ahead and throw Xavier Legette at 7 here. I like Xavier Legette a ton. He's one of my higher exposed wide receivers. He's going to be a top 10 wide receiver for me. So we're getting into some rankings. Get rid of this. Boom. Roman Wilson, I really like. He ran quicker than I think some people thought. I thought he'd be a 4.3 guy, and I think he was 4.3s, maybe low 4.4s. Good day for him. I'm not a big Malachi Corley guy. I'm really not. I mean, not overly big or fast. People just want to throw the label of Debo. He's another guy that, if he goes somewhere that he's going to get an opportunity and it's a second round draft capital or something like that, then I'll worry about it in the summer getting my exposure. I'm just not going to reach for a guy like Corley that I don't believe in. So we'll see. Ricky Pearsall was kind of in that same sort of vein a little bit. I think it's just kind of like I have written here, 60-40 slot outside. If you look on PFF and see where he lined up, he's a good route runner. I think he'll settle in the slot. He ran a little quicker than I thought at the combine too, which is good. But I think he'll settle in the slot in the NFL, and I think he'll excel there. I think that's a good spot for him. I think he can do a little bit of both. He can move around realistically, but I think he'll really excel in the slot because he doesn't mind contact and he's a good blocker. So that's what I like about him, moving into the slot potentially. But he had a good day. I'm definitely actually picking up a few more shares, especially when he was at the top 50 for DJ. Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. That's actually a pretty coveted list realistically. And if he thinks that he can start day one for an NFL team, then, I kind of have to believe it because, he knows a hell of a lot more than me. Javon Baker, I wish would have ran a little quicker. I needed to see 4.4. That was really what I was really hoping for with Javon Baker. but a former Alabama commit, very soft hands, willing to get there and block. I just wanted to see him run a little bit quicker. I think he was mid 4.5s, something like that. I needed to see a little bit faster from him. Jacob Cowing, liked him. I see a little bit of Tank Dell, but he could be Deontay Johnson, obviously, if, right? I think he's a pure slot receiver. I do like him. We'll see what he does. I wanted him to run a little quicker too. Luke McCaffrey, I don't know. We'll see about him. Anaya Smith, I'm not a believer. I think McCaffrey's a developmental prospect. You're going to have to get him, in the weight room as well. So we'll see about him. Taj Washington, I think he's the better prospect over Brendan Rice. I'm not a Brendan Rice guy pretty much whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, he ran fast. He's a fast guy, same size as Tank Dell. So why not? Basically, what I have written here, like why, again, in its landing spot and opportunity, a little bit of draft capital. He's probably going to be like a 4th to 6th round guy, something like that. So it's really going to depend on where he goes and if he's able to get that opportunity. But a couple of unsung, Malik Washington, little water bug out there when he was running the 40, super low to the ground, just kind of zips through, ran fast, which I like, a little bit on the small side, but he's a bit of a tank. He weighed in, heavier than a guy like, again, Tyreek Hill. Obviously he's not quite that style, but he weighed in more than Tyreek Hill did in his draft year. And he's only, he's 3 inches shorter. He's a little tank. So I like Malik Washington. He's going to have to go somewhere where he's going to, play in the slot. He is a slot receiver. It is what it is. But I think I'm drafting him, and I think you should too. Shout out to Eric Binefor. He's the one that kind of not put him on my radar, but made me go and watch tape. I was aware of his stat profile. You don't get 1,400 yards receiving, especially at a school like Virginia, if you're not good. So I had to go watch the tape, and I agree. I definitely like him. He's a little playmaker with the ball in his hands, becomes a running back essentially when he catches the ball. And Jermaine Burton, I think, is a guy that had an underrated, kind of overlooked, and a lot of these wide receivers had an overlooked combine because of what Xavier Worthy did and kind of the build up from that. It was a bit of a, exhale after, watching Worthy break that record. It was kind of just a collective exhale inside the building. And then nothing else particularly kind of mattered for a minute there. It was interesting. But I like Jermaine Burton. Definitely played with a quarterback that's run first. He's not going to throw the ball a ton. So again, landing spot, the quarterback that he goes with, but I believe in the talent. It's a 20th round pick. It's a free player. I like the talent with Jermaine Burton, so I'm willing to take a risk there. But I'll finish up the rankings a little bit later. I just wanted to get those two guys in there, Xavier Worthy and Xavier Legette, the Xavier brothers. And then, like I said, I'm not changing it. I don't care what happens. Even with Worthy breaking the record, I'm not moving up above Adonai Mitchell just because of the size. And, he's plenty fast as well, 4.3 speed. Won't touch on the tight ends too much. I won't touch on them realistically at all. I'm excited to see Bryson Nesbitt at his pro day. That's a guy that I want to see run, low 4.5s and see where he goes. Dallin Holker, I wanted to be faster. He wasn't. He's 4.78 guy, which is not the end of the world, but I was hoping he'd get in the 4.6s, high 4.6s. But it is what it is. I still like Holker, but I might draft him less. Realistically, these are the only 2 rookies for me that I'm drafting in best ball. Not Theo Johnson. I think Theo Johnson is Darnell Washington from last year. He tested very, very well, but if you watch the tape, to me, he's nothing more than a blocking tight end. At least early on in his career, he's going to be a developmental guy, and he's Canadian. So, usually I'm a homer with the Canadians, and I'm not a huge Theo Johnson fan. I actually do like Tanner McLaughlin, who's from about 1.5 to 2 hours away from me, south of me, in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. So homer for Tanner McLaughlin a little bit. He had a good combine, so he might be making this list somewhere in here, most likely. We'll see. But there you go. A little bit of combine talk there. Davis, what's up, man? What's happening? A little bit of combine talk. So some risers, some fallers, that sort of thing. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's bring up Underdog. All right. We're going to take a quick look at some rookie exposures. 87 drafts in, 67 big boards, maxed out the little board. So let's take a look at some exposures. Let's get this updated so it's 87 and not 85. Let's do just the big board. Quarterbacks, there's some quarterbacks. I won't dig into this too much. Let's zoom in. Won't dig into the quarterbacks too much, but there you go. There's a few names for you. Marshawn Lloyd, my most drafted. I'm happy with that. There's a lot of rumblings that he's going to be that LA Chargers running back. The USC running back coach is now the running back coach for the LA Chargers. So we'll see. I'm giving it away a little bit right there. Eric Gray, I just think that he was a steal last year in the draft. They're not bringing back Saquon Barkley. Why do we think that Eric Gray is just going to get completely replaced and not given a shot whatsoever to play? He's a completely free 20th round guy. I said it last week. I'll say it again right now. Eric Gray is this year's Kyron Williams. That's what I think. We'll see if I'm right or not, but realistically, it doesn't matter. He's a 20th round pick. If I'm completely wrong, I'm completely wrong. You know, realistically, you're taking your shots, especially at running back in the 20th round. I'm not too worried about it, but I'm willing to take that chance. I do need to pull this back a little bit. 37% is a little bit rich, but so I have been slowing down. That's for damn sure, but I'm still happy with Eric Gray. So we got Braylon Allen, again, a little bit too high. I need to stop drafting him at this ADP, which I have been, and I'll continue to do. Same thing with Ray Davis. Again, a little bit too high. I'd like to get this down to, 18%-ish, something like that, maybe, 15, but I have tons of drafts left. I'm like not even halfway there. So to maxing out, and I will be maxing this out. This is the one that kills me. I haven't drafted Audric Estime since the combine, and I won't draft him a single time again for the rest of unless he's a 20th round guy. And even then, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if there's any buzz around his name, because what I saw at the combine, I really couldn't get behind. Jalen Wright, happy with that, 24%. I would like to bump it up even more, but his price is rising and quick. What else do we got? Cody Schrader, way too high there. I'm going to not be drafting him much or any at all. I got to get some more Trey Benson. That's for sure. Let's take a look at some wide receivers. So Jahan Dotson, number 1, like that. Brian Thomas, my number 2. Oh, I mixed up Brian Thomas and Adonai Mitchell in my exposures earlier when I was talking about the rankings. So more than happy to keep plugging away at Brian Thomas. He's now moved back up above DeAndre Nuke Hopkins. So they kind of flip-flopped throughout the season throughout the draft season before the combine. Obviously, since the combine, Brian Thomas has moved back up above Nuke Hopkins. Adonai Mitchell, I'm happy to have there. I'm going to keep drafting him. I'll get to 30%. I'm fine with that. Rome Odunze, like I said, he might just be the guy. That's my. I think I see a lot of Jamar Chase, and look at the guard behind me here. I see a lot of Jamar Chase when I watch Rome Odunze play. So I'm going to keep drafting as much as I possibly can. I draft him every single time that I can. But I don't force it, obviously. Javon Baker, too high. I need to pull that back. But again, he's a 20th round, late, 19th, 20th round guy. So not the end of the world. Xavier Worthy, like I said, 20%. Happy with that. I'd like to bump it up, but he's skyrocketing as well, much like Jalen Wright. Roman Wilson, I'm fine there. Xavier Legette, I'm fine there, but I don't mind mixing in a few more shares. Malik Washington, I get same thing. Happy with that. And Jermaine Burton is one of my more favorite, like 20th round flyer wide receivers. That's kind of still out there. So that's where we are exposure wise. But let's do a draft here. Let's do a draft. We're half hour in. That's good. Shouldn't be too crazy long of an episode. So if you want to draft, you're in the chat. Jump in. Well, only waiting for one, so. That's good. Won't be waiting long. Try to zoom in on this. Make it look good. Boom, boom. All right. So I still, like I said last week, and I'm pretty sure I'm still there. I want to be 10. I want to be the 10th pick. Why do I want to be the 10th pick? 11th. Maybe I'll get him. We'll see. I need to get some exposure to AJ Brown. I have, I think, 0 shares, and that's not by design. I noticed it a few days before last week's show, and I've been trying to get him. A lot of badges here tonight. I've been trying to get him and just haven't been able to get him. I haven't had the 9th, 10th, 11th pick basically since then. So it is what it is. And hopefully I can get him at the 11, but I highly doubt it. These wide receivers are moving up. Wide receivers are going to be moving up, especially after the combine. But there's going to be some veteran wide receivers that are going to start to slide down, towards the end of the draft, after the 14th round, something like that. Guys are going to slowly shift down because rookies are moving up. But we'll see. Nice. In the 2 spot. How do you say that? LOL Simo or Lolsimo? In the 2 spot. Who are you going to take? CD? Tyreek? I'm happy we won't be sniping each other all draft. So we'll see how this goes. So I really want, like I said, AJ Brown. I highly, highly doubt that happens. But a guy can dream over here. So Tyreek Hill 3. I think Justin Jefferson's going to probably fall below Jamar Chase in the not so distant future. Just with the news that Kirk Cousins likely will not be back. And I think that that's completely valid and justified, if I'm being honest. If it's who's it going to be? Russell Wilson, maybe, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, one of those rookies. If they could trade up for maybe a Drake May, I don't know. But, for me, I'm going to be taking Jamar Chase above Justin Jefferson, until further notice. It's a play on Awesome. Oh, he's good, not bad. Gotcha. Stochastic now, or whatever it's called. I don't know why I changed the name, to be honest with you, but whatever. I thought Awesome was a good name. 2 more picks. You never know. ADP is still, 11 for AJ Brown. But again, we're seeing the wide receivers move up. We're seeing running backs move down. We're seeing rookies move up. DJ Moore, wow. Don't hate it. But that opens the door for me. Yes. First AJ Brown share. Love it. That's awesome. Back-to-back picks. I'd love to get Garrett Wilson here. I'm not taking Nico Collins there. I'm certainly not taking Marvin Harrison there. Might have to get a running back, though, which I don't love, but it is what it is. If I do, I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs. And this guy is probably auto-drafting. Yep. So he's going to get Gibbs and Garrett Wilson, I'm sure. Gibbs is slowly falling, and I think I said it last week. I think he's going to continue falling outside the first round. He's just not a workhorse back like the rest of these running backs are. He's just not, up there volume-wise with obviously Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. He's not up there to their level volume-wise. Therefore, he realistically can't or shouldn't be a first-round pick. So he's going to slide down, I think. And then we're going to see, I guess, DJ Moore slide up. I'm going to dip down to Devon Achane here. Just because of the explosion. Just because of the spike week upside, more so. Like a spike week for Kyren Williams, realistically last year was, 30 points. It was perfectly solid. But a spike week for Devon Achane last year, 50 points. So you get that in the fantasy playoffs. You get that in week 17. And you're obviously, laughing. So Saquon Barkley, we'll see where he lands. I've been saying Houston Texans for months now. This isn't new. I said it on Pat's show on the Fantasy Dog Pound in the chat there. Like that was my pick. Basically, as soon as the season ended, there's almost no way, in my opinion, that Barkley was going to be back with the Giants. And again, that's why I was drafting so much Eric Gray, and I'll continue to draft him, sporadically. I'd like to get it down to the 20s, 25%, 25% for Eric Gray is where I'd like to get it, to settle at. And I got tons of room. I got tons of drafts to make that happen. But we'll see where Barkley lands. Maybe he goes to the Chargers. I doubt it. The cap situation for the Chargers, I don't think will allow a Saquon Barkley, but he's certainly available there for the Texans. You never know. Even my Bengals could be a landing spot for someone like Barkley. I highly doubt that, if I'm being honest with you, because they just don't do something like that. My Bengals just don't go after free agent running backs aging. It just doesn't happen. So that's just not going to happen there. I feel Achane and Gibbs are same place spike week upside for week 17. Yeah, absolutely. Gibbs can definitely be that guy, especially with the injury history that we've seen out of David Montgomery. He's another year older as well. So he could get that, bell cow workload. He could. It's on the table, but it's not, written in stone. That's for sure. So, and again, with how we see wide receivers rise all the time, it's just natural selection essentially that he's going to fall down. But I think he'll live right in here, right in this, 1-2 turn kind of thing. If you can get him, mid second round, then I think you're printing money at that point. So we'll see where he lands, I guess after the draft, where he lands in Best Ball Mania season. But that's what I think is going to happen with a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. I do not think that he will fall behind any of these three, Jonathan Taylor, Barkley, and Kyren Williams. There's no way. And I think Devon Achane rises above those three. Maybe before the end of this tournament, to be honest, for Achane. So we'll see. What else we got? Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. Like I said in the pre-show there in the build-up, it was not a good day to be a Buffalo Bill. It was just chopping block city. Not necessarily on the offensive side of the ball. Some offensive linemen, their center, they traded a guard. But that defense took a shit kicking. So I guess that bodes well for Josh Allen and the offense and the offensive players, right? Oh, this guy just didn't want me to have nice things. Hey, that's fun. That's cool. So yeah, I guess that bodes well for the Buffalo Bills. Offensive players, like I said, because if their defense is terrible, they're going to have to be in games, and Josh Allen can absolutely do that. He can absolutely gunsling it. He's a win at all costs kind of guy, put his body on the line, that sort of a thing. He's going to do what he's got to do. And yeah, I guess that's good for the offense, because they're going to have to score more points, because they're going to get more points scored on them. They cut Tre'Davious White, Dane Jackson's gone, Poyer, Hyde, all gone. It's going to be interesting how that defense looks in 2024. So we're almost on the clock here. I'm not a Travis Etienne guy personally. I think he's going to get his numbers, his touches clipped this year. I think they want to get Tank Bigsby going. I like Tank Bigsby a ton last year in the draft. I think he was my RB3, I believe. But we'll see where it lands. So this guy's auto drafting, it seems. So I'm going to go Jalen Waddle for sure, and then hope that Drake London's there for me if he is indeed auto drafting. I was drafting a lot of Drake London early, but his ADP rose. It just hasn't kind of worked out. Yeah, I like Waddle as well. I need to up my exposure to Waddle, to be honest with you. But I have been picking up more and more shares, and I definitely like that. That's kind of a no-brainer right there to pick Waddle, unless I could have the opportunity to get Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts with the full stack AJ Brown. But here we are. So I don't think that I have to take Tua with Achane and Waddle, but we'll see. If it works out and it makes sense, then I obviously will, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But it's not necessary. I've done the same thing with the Rams. With I started Kyron Puka in the 1-2 turn, and then I don't bring in Matt Stafford. I think that's it's a common. I'm not going to call it a mistake, but it's just a common drafters just feel like they have to. I have a pass catching running back and a pass catcher. I have to take the quarterback. Going Drake London here, and I just don't think that that's necessary. I don't think you have to, especially on a high-powered offense, on when the quarterback is essentially mediocre, right? Like if we look at Tua's stats, is that something that you have to have on your roster, with the number, 1A, 1B type of wide receiver and I think we all agree, not a workhorse back, but the number one running back and highest point getter in the backfield for the Dolphins, right? So is 284 points completely necessary? You can get that from a lot of other quarterbacks. Even look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Let's say you go Trevor Lawrence for whatever reason, 8 points difference. So if you're working on some other stacks, some other builds, again, I just don't think it's necessary whatsoever. And look at Matt Stafford. Don't get me wrong, Matt Stafford is one of the best real life quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's not the best, he's not the best fantasy asset realistically. So do you have to have this just because you have a pass catcher and a running back? No, I don't think you do whatsoever. So little nugget there. I may or may not be drafting Tua with this build that I have here, but I'm happy to have a high-powered offense, and then, a bit of a dart throw, and we'll see with Drake London here. So that's just a little bit on kind of how I've been looking at it. And it's those two teams almost specifically, and maybe those are the only two teams, the Rams and the Dolphins, that you would really want to do that makes tons of sense, where you just take the running back and the wide receiver and call it a day and don't worry about the quarterback. I'm sure there's some other ones that, I'm not thinking of right this second. And maybe we'll just look through it quickly here and see if anything pops out. I guess, yeah, San Francisco. You could get away with it with San Francisco for sure. You could do, you're never going to get these two guys unless, like I said earlier, like if Jahmyr Gibbs falls to the mid-second round and you go Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs, you could do that and not take Jared Goff, but I think it makes more sense too because his ADP is lower, certainly than, Tua. It's kind of staying steady. But yeah, you might want to take Goff. He's also a 300-point quarterback last year. And with everything coming back, I could see that, getting better, moving up. So where are we at here? We got Devin Achane, AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle, Drake London as it sits. 59. I'm happy to have an auto drafter in the 12 hole because I don't really have to. I can plan accordingly around him. Might get a little funky, which is not particularly funky, but I think I'll be taking Terry McLaurin here if he's still there. If not, then Christian Kirk. Yeah, that's fine. So I'll take Christian Kirk. I think if you look at what he did here, he was on pace. If you look at his stat line, look at the games played, he was basically on pace to do exactly what he did in 2022. 200 point wide receiver. I'm more than happy with that. He's probably going to play in the slot a lot more. He's guaranteed to be on the team, which we're not 100% sure on Calvin Ridley yet. But yeah, Christian Kirk is, and he lives like next door. I think they're next door neighbors, Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk. Little interesting tidbit for the peeps on that one. Good start at wide receiver. It does thin out a ton in the middle rounds. So I love taking a, hero RB build and then waiting until this, realistically, this area, Chandler, Benson, Hubbard, Roschon, Zamir White, Charbonnet, Jerome Ford, wait until there to take your RB2. So we'll see what I end up doing here, because it looks like CJ Stroud's going to go to the, kind of quote fingers wrong owner, which sucks when you have an auto drafter, but you gotta plan that out. If you're trying to make stacks, if you have an auto drafter, plan that stuff out. Brian Thomas, so he's not auto drafting anymore. Love me some Brian Thomas. I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid here for a couple reasons. Number one, I like him as a player. That's for sure. Number two, what did I just say a few minutes ago about the Buffalo Bills and their offense? They're going to have to throw. They're going to have to score points. So that makes me like him a little bit more as well. Number three, having some Miami Dolphins. They play twice a year, obviously. So that ups my potential that when the schedule gets released, that maybe the Bills and Dolphins will play in week, 17, 16, in the fantasy playoffs, hopefully. So there's a few reasons why I like Dalton Kincaid. And that's another little tidbit that not a lot of people think about. It can be a differentiator with who you're going to draft. Do they play in the NFC or AFC? Do they play in the same division? That sort of thing. When we don't know the schedule and we don't know who's going to play who, where, and when, it's not the worst idea. Again, that it's not, don't revolve your whole draft strategy around this. But if it's a tiebreaker, think about that. Look at that. That's the sort of thing that, you can take a look at and you can think about, again, when we don't know the schedule, and we won't for this entire tournament. So that's another reason why I like, with what I'm doing here with my build, I like Dalton Kincaid. So there you go. Little nugget, little tidbit. So where are we? Like I said, Brian Thomas moved back up above DeAndre Hopkins. I think he started above, then Hopkins moved above. Now Brian Thomas is back ahead of him ADP wise. And I think it's only going to get more and more so. I think he'll move above Pickens, potentially Terry McLaurin. Depends on the draft buzz. But I think that Brian Thomas is a top 15 pick in this year's draft, almost for sure. I could see a team trading up for him. I would. If he's there for me and my Bengals, shit, I would take him in a heartbeat. And then you could trade T. Higgins after that, or play him and just have a stud offense and then let T. Higgins walk. Could do that as well. There's lots of options for my Bengals. They got tons of money in free agency. Not a crazy amount of holes. They do need a right tackle. There's some other holes, but Bengals are in a good spot. Mark my words, guys. Mark my words. What is it? March 6th, 2024. Cincinnati Bengals are winning the Super Bowl this year. Mark my words. Is that a homer thing for me to say? Yeah, probably, but whatever. That's how she goes. It's my show. I can say what I want. But no one can deny they have a good shot. They got a good shot. We'll see what happens with Chase Brown and Joe Mixon, my least favorite running back in the NFL, Joe Mixon, coming from a Bengals fan too. So we're pick 83 and 86. What do we want to do? Lol Samo. Let's take a look here. CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, Patrick Mahomes to pair with Rashee Rice, George Kittle, and Najee. I like Najee. Najee's all the way back with Arthur Smith. They do need a little bit of work on that offensive line, which I think they can do in the draft. They can do in free agency. But I think we can basically write in with a Sharpie that Najee's getting 250 to 280 carries, plus another 20 catches, something like that. On the table for double-digit touchdowns, I would say for sure. All right, where do we want to go here? We got Dalton Kincaid. Could be a good spot for running back. Quarterback certainly on the table. We'll talk about Justin Fields after these picks. I do want to touch on him. I will not be drafting him right here, but we'll talk about him in a second. I know what I want to do, and I hope I can make it happen. So I think it's it should be pretty obvious that I definitely want to go Kyle Pitts here. Dalton Schultz. Interesting. To pair with his CJ Stroud, is dry CJ Stroud. Brings in Dalton Schultz. That's not bad. That's a good way to recover. He's probably going to bring in Stafford because now you kind of have to. If you got 3, it's interesting. Don't hate this build, I guess. It's definitely different, a little unique. But I'll be taking Kyle Pitts here. And then I might be done at tight end. I've been doing that a lot lately. Either one of or both, power at the onesies. So I've been doing a lot of 2 tight end builds. A lot. I just think that in the ranges that they're going, again, and with a lot of the players around them, you can get a Kincaid, a Pitts, and in this case, I probably would have taken David Njoku instead of Pitts. But with what I'm building, it obviously makes sense to go that route. And then I'm done at tight end. So I may or may not with Pitts just because it's a little risky, but I'm probably, you're spending 2 top 100 picks, 2 top, in this case, 83 picks on tight end. You kind of have to just close your eyes and believe that they're going to get the job done. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And I'm doing similar things with quarterbacks, especially if I'm getting Josh Allen, and then I'll take it from there. So that's a good pick for David Njoku. I like that. But I'm going to go Brian Robinson here. I would be picking him ahead of, honestly, all of these guys. With Dan Quinn coming in, with Anthony Lynn, Dan Quinn and Anthony Lynn coming in. I really like how that looks for Brian Robinson. And something I saw, here's a little freebie tidbit for you guys. Something I saw today or yesterday, in Cliff Kingsbury offenses, like Kenyon Drake, James Conner, guys like that have led the league in goal line carries. So Kenyon Drake, yeah, like leading the league's top 3, top 5, whatever in goal line carries. And obviously Brian Robinson's a big guy. I think he's finally going to get it figured out a little bit. At least I hope he does. I really liked him as a rookie. I liked him last year. I like him even more now. Antonio Gibson is almost certainly going to be gone. Yeah, they got Chris Rodriguez, who people like. I think he's okay, but I don't think you're going to be, taking anything away from Brian Robinson, but they'll probably bring somebody in as well, more of a pass catching type back, but Brian Robinson can get the job done there as well. So we'll see. I'm a big fan of Brian Robinson just as a player, but also now with the changes to the offense, to the scheme, the coaches that are coming in, I'm pretty wheels up on Brian Robinson. I need to add some more exposure to him, which obviously I just did. So I like the way this team's kind of coming together. Probably done at tight end. There was just a wide receiver cliff right there. So I got a couple picks that weren't wide receiver, obviously tight end, running back. And then it kind of comes back around here with Deontay Johnson. Myers is fine. Downs in certain builds. Cortland Sutton, I'm not too, huge on just because of he might not be on the team, in my opinion. His contract, he just might not be there, especially because they need some space when they're just setting fire to a bunch of money for Russell Wilson's deal. But thoughts on Warren here? I like Warren. I mean, if I'm you, I probably don't take Jaylen Warren with Najee, especially when you only have one running back right now. But it's up to you. It's not a bad play to lock down that running back room with an Arthur Smith. They're calling the offense who loves to run the ball. So not a bad play, but I would rather, and it's tough to do given ADPs, but I would rather have Jalen Warren, and Najee as my 2 and 3 rather than my RB2 when they're my RB1 and 2. You know what I mean? But you can catch up later. Bring in some rookies. But I do like Warren as a player. When watching film on him as a rookie, literally just a bowling ball. So that had me a little bit concerned. I was worried about his 40. I think he ran quicker than I thought. I think he was a 4.5 guy, and I thought he'd be like a 4.6, high 4.6, really slow, just literally a downhill runner bowling ball type of a guy. And then with the offense in Pittsburgh, I didn't love him there because that's not how they ran the ball, which was, pretty frustrating, is a good way to put it, I suppose. Where are we here? Okay, we got some room. So I could go Tua. I could go Trevor Lawrence. I'll continue the Warren talk in a second here. I still got to touch on Justin Fields. I could go Tua, but I actually don't want to. I don't want to take Tua. I want to do what I said I wanted to do and just leave it there. So I think I'm going to take Jacoby Myers. I would have probably taken Adonai Mitchell, but he just went one pick before. I'm going to take Jacoby Myers. Give him some love. And then either I'm taking a quarterback or Xavier Worthy. But I think I have to go running quarterback here. I got to get some quarterback points on the board, especially with the risks I'm taking at quarterback, waiting until the 10th round to select one. So Tua goes, probably thinks he's sniping me, which is funny to me and perfectly fine. I'm happy to not take Tua. I was never going to take him. But again, I like seeing that. Guy probably thinks he's sniping me, but nope, not whatsoever. And now he's not going to take the quarterback that I am going to pick, which is Trevor Lawrence, to match up with my Christian Kirk. And I'm okay with just that. I'm like, in these big boards, you don't have to double, triple stack. Just get one pass catcher with especially a quarterback that gets some rushing upside. So that's what I'm going to do. T-Law, who I do really like. I really like this year. It might be fool's gold a tiny bit, just hoping and expecting that he's going to improve, but he kind of has to at some point. The offensive line should be better just via playing more and being, more experienced and hopefully skilled. And then hopefully they can lean on a guy like Tank Bigsby. They got Evan Ingram. I think they bring back Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, hopefully back fully healthy. Parker Washington, good player. They got some quality depth at wide receiver. But yes, finish up, we'll put a bow on this Jalen Warren stuff. He just looked like a bowling ball to me, and that wasn't how the offense was running when he got there, right? And that's why Najee struggled so much, in my opinion. Najee was a similar running style, I will say. At least that's what I thought out of Warren. He's shown a lot more juice than I thought he had in college at Oklahoma State, I believe. Oklahoma State. He showed a lot more juice in the league than he did in college to me. But and a little bit more pass catching acumen. I thought he was just going to be a first, second down bowling ball, take the ball and run straight into the offensive line's asses sort of thing. But he's turned out to have a lot more juice than I thought, and I do like him as a player. Mind you, I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously. So they're my most hated rival by far. But let's talk about Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going to end up in with the Raiders. That's not a secret. That's not me breaking, ground over here. A lot of people are saying it. There's the connection with Luke Getsy. Makes tons of sense. Antonio Pierce basically said that he doesn't want a Band-Aid. He doesn't want a rental quarterback, which kind of excludes Russell Wilson. Plus, they played him twice a year for the last few years and probably didn't love what they saw. And it's, you're getting a young quarterback that can absolutely be your franchise guy, and in an offense that he already knows, right? So, and he's not going to be very expensive. Like, I thought he might be a late first round pick to get Justin Fields, like in the 20s somewhere. That's why the Steelers were kind of on the board. A lot of people thought. So turns out maybe it's only going to be a second, maybe a third, maybe a second and a fourth, maybe a third and fifth, something along those lines. So that's inexpensive for a franchise quarterback if you think he's your franchise quarterback, which I do think the Raiders think. And then they're still going to have the 8th overall pick to make their team better. And the Raiders, I said this last week too, the Raiders coaching staff is a fucking all-star team of a coaching staff. I love that staff. If you haven't seen it, go take a look. There's tons of former head coaches, tons of play callers, former players, all kinds of stuff all over that coaching staff. So a lot of support for Antonio Pierce. What are we doing here? I'm going to force this guy's hand if he wants to take just a dry Kirk Cousins for God knows why, then he can go ahead. I highly doubt this guy would take him. So I will be taking Kirk Cousins, banking on obviously an Atlanta stack, try to get that rolling. But I'm gonna if this guy wants to, screw me over and thinking he sniped me on Tua, which he absolutely did not. Then go ahead, be my guest if you want to reach and take a dry Kirk Cousins for no good reason. What do I got for wide receivers? I got 5 on the board. Don't need to push it. I do need a little more Roschon, but I need a little more Charbonnet as well. I'm going to take Zach Charbonnet here and then Kirk Cousins. Yeah, easy peasy. So I got Trevor Lawrence with single stack with Christian Kirk. I like that. I am banking on Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. His wife is from Atlanta. It sounds like he's already moving there. It's a better fit for him. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Like Minnesota is a great fit for him as well. But if he's trying to be a little closer to home and to finish out his career, I think the Atlanta Falcons. I'll say this. The Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins is a better team than the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, if that makes sense. That's how I feel about Kirk Cousins. That's why I think it makes sense for him to go to Atlanta as well. They'll have the, what are they, 7th or 8th overall? 8th overall again. They've been 8th for like 6 years in a row. And if they get that pass rusher, Dallas Turner, the offensive line's in good shape. The defense is improving, again, especially if they get Dallas Turner in there. The offense is obviously in great shape with Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. So with Kirk Cousins, honestly, all of the teams looking for a quarterback, pretty much all of the teams looking for a quarterback in this cycle, with Kirk Cousins on their team, they're probably a playoff team. Pittsburgh Steelers, way better team with Kirk Cousins. Raiders, 100% a playoff team with Kirk Cousins. Whoever else, insert team here. Atlanta, that's obviously what I'm pushing right now. They're a playoff team. I think Atlanta wins that division if Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta. So, and with this build right here would be in really good shape if Kirk Cousins is an Atlanta Falcon. So I do need to bring in a third quarterback on this build, but then that almost certainly solidifies I'm only taking 2 tight ends with Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts, which I'm fine with. It's a touch fragile, I suppose, but given the uncertainty surrounding Kyle Pitts the last few years. But again, if I'm building this narrative, which I am, then I have to believe that these two can get the job done. So I'm telling a story and I'm sticking to it, essentially, is what's going on with this draft and with this build. So I definitely need to hammer running back, because I think I can get Like I'm already got a nice stable of wide receivers here. I like where I'm at. And there's, like I said, earlier in the show, the rookie wide receivers are moving up. So a lot of these quality, first, second, third, fourth year veteran, type of wide receivers are falling where they shouldn't be, in my opinion. So I think I can get value, and there's a couple rookies I like late as well. So I think I can get value at wide receivers. So I need to hammer running back and get another quarterback is kind of how I'm looking at this. So 50. Wow, this did the guy. Oh, he missed out on him. Wow. The guy who took all these Rams didn't take Matt Stafford. Interesting. I suppose that's okay, I guess. Jalen Wright just went. Again, I'm happy I got the exposure I did when I did, because he's just skyrocketing. So my 20% looks a lot better now that I can't get him. I was drafting him in the 20th round, 19th round, 18th round, 17th round, 16th round, all the way up, and I'm taking him here in the 13th and even maybe 12th sometimes. I'm a huge believer in Jalen Wright. So hopefully it lands in a good spot. So who are we taking here? Not a Bucky Irvin fan. Now I'm not an Audric Estime fan, and I won't be drafting him again until, there's any sort of buzz that deems it necessary, which that just does not exist right now. Aaron Rodgers is a quality pick here, but realistically, he's like a late round, bring back with Ty Conklin kind of a guy. Mind you, I think Jeremy Rucker gets some run this year. He was a third round pick. Jeremy Rucker was a third round pick, and he barely played last year. So you got to get him some run. He's got to get on the field. CJ Uzama's out of town. So it's Conklin and Jeremy Rucker. But, death, taxes, and Ty Conklin getting 5.5 targets a game is kind of, I really wanted Marshawn Lloyd there. That's unfortunate. Now I kind of wish I did take Justin Fields with Jacoby Myers, and I could bring in Michael Mayer here. Basically, this means I have to go wide receiver, which isn't the end of the world. And I'm going to take Wan'Dale Robinson, who I really like. I don't mind Jalen Hyatt too, and I need to get more Jalen Hyatt shares. But Wan'Dale was a guy I really liked as a rookie, and I'll keep drafting him all the way up. So I'm going to take a flyer on Deshaun Watson. And the reason why on that one is because of what I was kind of talking about a few minutes ago with the rookie wide receivers moving up the board and some quality veteran wide receivers falling down. Who does that mean? I like the Xavier Legette pick there. Who does that mean? It's pretty obvious. It's Elijah Moore that I can pair up with him. And that's a bit risky, but again, with what I have, with what I've built so far at the wide receiver position, I think I could take a risk like that. So I'm done at quarterback now. Happy with this room. Definitely done at quarterback. I'm done at tight end because of how fragile I'm going to be at running back. Some of the rookies just, moved up too far, not able to get them. Might not have much of anything for rookie running backs on this team, on this build, unless I can get Ray Davis, who I will take. Big Ray Davis fan. About 20% on him, I think. I don't know, I showed a pre-show, something like that. If Underdog had Isaac Orendo, just old man yelling at the clouds, I won't let it go. That's really sad that Isaac Orendo is not in the player pool. I have seen Petey the Jet Guerrero. Yes, his nickname is Petey the Jet. You can Google it. And I've seen, look at this ADP. Like, he's been drafted, and I'm not sure if people are just thinking that's Isaac Arendo. I don't know. I don't really know. This guy's not even in the league. Like, he's not even on a team. He went to Monmouth and graduated in like 2019 or something like that. Like, it's pretty baffling. So, I was talking about Eric Gray taking shots on 20th round Eric Gray, where it doesn't really matter if I'm wrong. Great. If he's Kyron Williams, I'm going to be laughing my ass off. But, guys are taking Petey the Jet Guerrero in the 20th round. So I can't go that wrong, right? What's my opinion on the Ravens running back room? Who's staying, who's leaving, lingering injuries? I don't think that J.K. Dobbins is coming back. I don't think they're unless he takes like a huge discount to stay on the team, just because he was kind of strong arming them. And in the preseason last year, when he was, before he, had that, his second, third, fourth big injury of his career. And that front office doesn't really respond to that sort of, attitude, if you will. So I don't think that J.K. Dobbins will be back. I think Gus Edwards might get some buzz, or might get a call from the Chargers, given that, John Harbaugh's brother, is the head coach there now. But more importantly, Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator, used to be the offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens, has to like Gus Edwards. They need a running back. He's cheap, so he might get some buzz there. If he lands there, then his ADP is going to kind of skyrocket. Justice Hill will be there. He'll still be the change of pace kind of running back that every team has right now. Every team needs pass catching back. He was good in the playoffs. He was good towards the end of the year. So he'll still have a role for sure, kind of regardless of what happens. I think that Justice Hill will have a role. So I've been drafting him a little bit in these big boards, just because I'm very confident he's going to be on this team and he's going to have a role. But then as far as that, after that, Gus might come back. Gus Edwards might come back to the Ravens. So if he does, then that might put a damper on, some of the other free agent buzz, or potentially rookie buzz. Got to go with Elijah Moore to pair up. That's the whole reason I drafted Deshaun Watson. So I kind of have to go that route. Super fragile running back room. Might only go with 8 wide receivers here. Kind of have to, actually. But I'll continue this Ravens talk in a second here. Just got to make a couple picks. I would like to get some youth here. Okay, I'm glad he took Trey Burks, because I probably would have taken him. But I'm going to go ahead and just scoop up Malik Washington. I need a rookie. Need some youth. I would take Jalen Hyatt if actually no. Let's take a guy that, again, I'm sticking with this narrative of the quality veteran running back, wide receivers, that have kind of fallen. Let's go Rashad Bateman. How many picks do I have left here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all going to be running backs. No question about it. All right. So for for running backs for the Ravens, free agents, obviously everybody's talking Derrick Henry. Everybody's saying Derrick Henry. And, I was listening to Sirius. I work on the road a lot of times, so I listen to Sirius NFL radio. And someone in the early morning was talking about, oh, doesn't Derrick Henry just look like a Baltimore Raven? And then whoever the co-host was shot back, what running back doesn't look like a Baltimore Raven? And that's very true. So Josh Jacobs could be a Baltimore Raven. Saquon Barkley could be a Baltimore Raven. Derrick Henry, like we said, they could go after somebody in the draft, 3rd, 4th round. So what do I think? I mean, we'll see what happens with Gus Edwards. I think J.K. Dobbins is gone. We'll see what happens with Gus Edwards. Justice Hill's going to have a role. I do think that Derrick Henry would be a fantastic fit. Given what we get out of Lamar Jackson, and Keaton Mitchell, you just said there. Yeah, Keaton Mitchell I like, but him and Justice Hill do a lot of the same things. Coming off a torn ACL, we'll see how he responds. The ACL surgery has gotten ridiculously good lately. Obviously, guys don't even care about it. It's not a big deal. It's like Tommy John for pitchers nowadays. It's just whatever. So he could come back and be that guy for sure. It's just, you're relying on it. It's tough to trust running backs like that, in my opinion, where they're only going to get 8 to 10 carries a game or touches even. And you kind of got to hope that they bust out a big play. He's kind of Devon Achane super light, like 1% alcohol Devon Achane. But I don't know, but at your own risk, realistically, what's your risk tolerance? I'm not a big fan or believer of Keaton Mitchell, to be perfectly honest. Those small running backs, he's 5'6", 5'7", 170 pounds, something like that. And he's just not going to get the volume week in and week out. He's going to have some splash plays. He's I guess that makes him okay for best ball, especially because he's, I'm sure, free. What's his ADP here? Wow, 172. That's way too high. I didn't even know that. That's way too high for me. Especially if all the chatter is right and Derrick Henry goes to the Baltimore Ravens again, and he's competing with Justice Hill. I don't know. I don't know. The Ravens have always been loyal. They've been loyal to players that have been there. They give guys a shot. So they're not just going to say, Justice Hill kicking with the curb. They're not going to say that to Gus Edwards if he comes back. They're very loyal. They're like a lot of the AFC teams are very similar in that vein. My Bengals, extremely loyal. They draft for the future. The Pittsburgh Steelers might be one of the poster, teams for that. And the Ravens are right there as well. A lot of the AFC North teams are like that. The Browns are just the Browns. But so they're very, very, again, they're very, very loyal. So they're not just going to kick, Justice Hill to the curb. And that Keaton Mitchell ADP for me is way too rich, personally. Way too rich. Who else goes in that? I'm going to pull it up after maybe. Who else goes in that area? Because that's a little crazy. Yeah, Keaton Mitchell, I think he's overpriced a ton. I think that's crazy. He should be going, at least a full round later. At least 180s, early 190s. Yeah, ahead of J.K. Dobbins. I don't know why people are drafting J.K. Dobbins personally. You're chasing a pipe dream, if you ask me. But what am I going to do here? I hate this position I'm in with the running backs. This is why I go running back pretty heavy a little bit early, because I can get value at wide receiver. At least that's how I look at it. So I guess I go with Kenny G. Up my exposure to Kenny G. I need a little bit more. He's on the team. Again, they're loyal to running backs as well, the Eagles. But yeah, the Ravens are an interesting one. I think that we got to kind of wait and see for free agency to play out, which we'll know for this tournament. We'll know if anybody goes there in the big board here. It's in 5 days? Because realistically, it's March 13th, allegedly, but the tampering period is the 11th. So realistically, we're going to see deals on the 11th. The free agency realistically is March 11th. So 5 days from now, if especially early in free agency, if the Ravens go after a running back, let's say it's Derrick Henry, let's say it's Josh Jacobs, then all the other running backs pretty much become strictly handcuff, right here with a guy like Israel Abanikanda here, Chris Rodriguez, even where Justice Hill is going, right? Tank Bigsby, stuff like that. That's where I think, a guy like Keaton Mitchell will fall if they get a running back like that. And they do have some cap space. So they absolutely can go after, a premier blue chip running back. For me, Josh Jacobs is at the top of the list, and then Saquon, and then Derrick Henry is kind of how I have it. Yeah, they do. Even Gus Edwards is what, like 28, 27, 28, something like that. And I could definitely see them coming back, or him coming back. Sorry. Um, yeah. Didn't Kenyon Drake come on this team last year? Something like that. Kenyon Drake. Yeah, there's lots of examples of some. Melvin Gordon. Yeah, the dusty old running backs. They like to bring in the once upon a time RBs, but whatever. That's kind of how this running back room looks for me. Terrible spot if I hate my running back room here, but I don't mind the build. I'm happy with my build, but I just don't like the running back room. That's for sure. Ben Sinnett, wow, he is really rising. He had a decent combine, I suppose. Desperately needs to change his number. Wore number 34 in college. That just looked so yuck when I was watching film on Ben Sinnett. I actually think, especially with that number, when you're wearing a number 34, you're basically saying I'm a fullback, which is really a bad move when you're, trying to get drafted as a tight end, obviously. I mean, it shows that he's going to be a team guy. He's going to block. He's going to do his job. He's going to do what he's told. But I actually thought he had a lot of pass catching acumen. I thought he looked a lot like really good catching the ball and running routes. It's just going to depend on where he goes. I don't think that realistically, I guess I could put him right there with Dallin Holker, and I really like Dallin Holker. So I could put him right there beside him, I suppose, but I'm not drafting any rookie tight end in best ball just yet, besides Jatavian Sanders and obviously Brock Bowers. I said that earlier and I stick by it, but he's got to pick a better friggin' number, man. 34 is just looks so gross out there, but good on him. Good on him for bringing up the fullback numbers. So Dylan Laube, not particularly a guy that I'm drafting too much. Olosimo, you drafted him. Well done. I mean, pass catching guy. Something that I'm not doing anymore in best ball is drafting running backs that are basically strictly a pass catching back. They might get on the field a little bit, but it's kind of chasing a little bit of fool's gold, because I would rather go with a guy like Israel Abanikanda, because he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the workhorse running back. He's going to be Breece Hall, not nearly as skilled, and the stats will reflect that if Breece Hall got hurt, but he's going to have that role. Let's say Dylan Laube is in a similar situation. He is not going to be that guy. He's just not. He's going to be maybe a third down guy. And who knows what his pass blocking is even like coming from a school like New Hampshire, right? Is he going to be able to, pass block on third down, NFL, linebackers, safeties, defensive ends, that sort of thing? Yeah, you wanted a Abanikanda. Yeah, I would rather too. I just worry about Laube. It's just I'm not real. I do have a couple shares here and there. I just worry about him. I have been clipping a little bit of Kamani Vidal. He had a really sneaky good combine, actually. And you know what? I'm going to take him here. Screw it. Why not? He had a sneaky good underrated combine, Kamani Vidal. He had good numbers. Yes, it was at Troy, and a lot of things I just said about Laube as far as third down and stuff like that, they exist with Kamani Vidal as well. But he's definitely a better runner of the football than a guy like Dylan Laube. He had a really good did he play in the East-West or the Senior Bowl? I think it was the East-West for Kamani Vidal, and he had a good day. So, and then again, a sneaky under the radar combine for Vidal. And I think a lot of people think the same thing, because his ADP has risen since the combine. So I think people agree with me on that. I don't mind taking some shares of Isaiah Davis, super efficient runner at South Dakota State. But I'm going to take Emmanuel Wilson. I've picked up a few shares of him. I think he's going to be the backup now and kind of the handcuff to Aaron Jones in Green Bay. Picked up a few shares here and there. If you can get the true handcuff And that's kind of this whole narrative these last 2 rounds, talking about Dylan Lowby, Kamani Vidal. If you can get the true handcuff, Israel Abanikanda, if you can get the true 100% handcuff in the 19th, 20th round, get her done. So, but I'm taking a lot of Eric Gray, obviously. I think he's, again, I'll say it again, I think he's this year's Kyron Williams. Could I be completely wrong on that? Absolutely. Does it fucking matter? Not one bit. It's a 20th round pick. People are picking Petey the Jet Guerrero. It does not matter if I'm wrong. So I'd rather be super right or a little bit wrong. Is kind of how I'm looking at Eric Gray. And that's another one we'll know in well, not until the end of the draft, but if the Giants don't do anything in free agency to address running back, then I really like my Eric Gray exposure. If they then only take, let's say, a 5th, 6th, 7th round undrafted free agent type of a running back, then it's wheels up for Eric Gray. You better believe it. So super, 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 super fragile running back room. Really, really hate it, but that's how it goes. 3, 7, 8, 2. Definitely a weird, wonky build. The running backs kind of got away from me. That's why I like to draft them early and often, most of the time, just because it dries up really quick. And then you're just trying to get these handcuffs and hoping for an injury, whatever. Like Kamani Vidal might not even make an NFL team. That's very, very on the table for Vidal. Emmanuel Wilson maybe doesn't even make the Green Bay Packers, to be honest, right? Dameon Pierce right now is the only running back on Houston Texans. Why not? So it's super, super fragile. We'll see what happens. But we got a 3-7-8-2 team. Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, hopefully he goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Deshaun Watson, Devon Achane, Brian Robinson Jr., Zach Charbonnet, Dameon Pierce, Kenneth Gainwell, Kamani Vidal, Emmanuel Wilson, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Drake London, Christian Kirk, Jacoby Myers, Wan'Dale Robinson, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts. So obviously I'm hoping Pitts, Drake London, and Kirk Cousins is a thing. This is probably the least amount of rookies I have on any team I've drafted. I have one rookie, Kamani Vidal. That's it. That's I would be willing to bet money. That's the least amount of rookies that I've drafted on one team, which is kind of crazy. I love me these rookies, especially rookie wide receivers, and I don't have a single one, so that's interesting. But again, I got value, like Bateman, value. I guess that's it. But that's kind of what I was talking about early in the show. These second, third, fourth year wide receivers that are quality players that are going to be on rosters 100%. They're falling because the post-combine push of rookie wide receivers is shoving those guys up the board. Look at something I did earlier today. This randomly, I was having lunch from work, jumping to Big Board. Turns out it was a stream, Pete Overzet stream. And this is what I drafted there. Got a ridiculous amount of value, almost 20 picks for Dak Prescott. Paired him up with my CD Lamb. I got a little more discount on fourth overall, sorry. And then Jake Ferguson at a bit of a discount. So 2, 5, 10, 3. I like my running back room. Jesus, I like my running back room here. Obviously, Josh Jacobs and a rookie, Marshawn Lloyd. We'll see how that kind of settles out. And then a couple rookie wide receivers. Don't really love Devontae Walker. I think I've only got 1 or 2 shares, but with the way I was building this, I needed some youth. I needed some rookies in there. So we'll see. Wanted to just show that for no good reason. 2, 5, 10, 3. Definitely an oddball build for me. But yeah, thanks for popping in, guys. I'm gonna get out of here. Hour and a half show. Happy to be back. Happy to be doing episodes. I'll be doing at the very least 1 show a week on Wednesdays at the very least. I'll probably try to mix in 1 or 2 shows throughout the week, Thursday, Tuesday here, Monday, whatever, and get a little more content out there, especially as we start building up towards the draft. I'll definitely be talking through. I'll probably do some streams where I'm not doing a draft, and I'll just talk through team needs. We'll go through maybe our lads, go through some depth charts, and look for some needs and try to find some landing spots. Obviously, with free agency opening, like I said, realistically, it's on the 11th. It's not on the 13th. The new league year starts on the 13th, but the tampering period is 2 days earlier on the 11th. A lot of big deals are going to get done earlier. They're going to get done on the 11th. And, there might be some that get turned around, but we'll see. We'll address that and we'll talk through it. But I appreciate the comments. Thanks a lot. Losimo, good to see you. First time seeing you in the chat. I appreciate it. Davis Pang, Pat from the Fantasy Dog Pound, Putt Daddy. Thanks. Appreciate you guys, the comments. Appreciate you guys coming out. Tune in next Wednesday. Turn on notifications, like and comment if you can. Turn on notifications, like I said, because it'll be, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday here, but Wednesday nights for sure. That's a lock for us. So like we always say on Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right. Hopefully tonight we were right. Thanks for coming out, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.